The news is out. OpenStack has taken the industry by storm. But with that growth comes the challenge to answer the most pressing questions of the day. Today, we face those questions head on.
Star Wars.
These aren't easy questions.
Some LMFAO song is coming to my head, but I can't think of which one.
The only thing I can think of off the top of my head, and this is totally corny, but it would be the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air one, because you come in and you kind of disturb things a little bit. Yeah, I think that would be it.
Good.
Keep it cool.
OpenStack song.
I Hear My Train A-Comin' by Jimi Hendrix.
It's the final countdown, no question.
Oh, no. Austin. I know Austin is the first one.
I'm bad at tests. So what was C?
Ooh, that's a tough one.
I'm having a blank on D right now as well.
Well, there's, wasn't it like, weren't there like 5?
Ooh, let's see. Sleepy, Grumpy.
Grizzly, Havana, Austin. I think that's it. And Juno.
Juno, or Ice House, right? Then Ice House? I don't know what the next thing is. I don't know what was C.
Diablo was the third one. And then I think that was some... No, Diablo was the fourth one.
Can you repeat the question?
Oh, snoozy, dopey, which is what I feel like right now.
Folsom and Grizzly, those are the only two I know.
Is there a Krabby in there? There's a Krabby, good.
Yeah, Austin Bear, Cactus, Diablo, Essex, Folsom, Grizzly, Havana, Ice House, Juno.
Diablo, Essex, Folsom, Grizzly, Havana, Ice House, Juno, and whatever's going to come next.
Okay. K's a hard one. Knick-knack. I don't know.
Oh, that's
Two double K's, yeah.
How long do we have for me to think about this?
Being from the South, I would love Krispy Kreme, but it's probably not going to happen.
Kick ass.
Kryptonite.
Kino, maybe?
Kangaroo.
My name's Keith.
Kilimanjaro.
Okay, we'll just use the drink name, Kamikaze.
What? Come here. What?
Welcome to day 2 of OpenStack Summit. And now please bring to the stage Mark Collier.
Good morning, OpenStack. I appreciate everybody getting in here so early. I definitely would like to thank Piston for providing the buses directly from the party to the keynote. For those of you who've been up all night, I mean, I think that was a nice gesture. So I think, we continue to see just incredible growth in OpenStack, and clearly some of you need to review some of the other releases. So I thought it would be fun to kind of go back through and look at our first 9 releases and talk about how OpenStack's evolved, and then really turn and think about the next 9 releases. I think we're really at the very beginning of a whole industry transformation of every industry. I want to talk a little bit about that. And so if we look at the road to Ice House was our 9th release, as you may know, just released a few weeks ago. And a lot of user input went into that. A lot of people who started with earlier versions and went through a lot of the hard times early on, who became super users and really helped us influence it with things like live upgrades, and really helped make the future upgrades a lot easier. In just under 4 years, we had 9 releases. And so this is a little animation we put together that actually shows you a lot of the development activity. So starting with Nova, the compute service, and object storage. So those were the first two components that were part of OpenStack in the Austin release. You may even recognize a few of these names. They get a little bit harder to read as the OpenStack grows. But folks like Jesse Andrews and Todd Wiley, aka the Beard, a lot of the early OpenStack pioneers were really working tirelessly to make those early versions of OpenStack. And we quickly added Glance, the image service, which came in the Bear release. That was the second release. And over time, we have expanded the scope of OpenStack, and there's been a lot of discussion about that. How do we go about making those decisions? Are we adding the right things? Is it getting too big? Neutron, the networking piece, came in next, and Horizon. And what's important to note here is that this is actually the start of the development activity. So the development activity actually starts well before it ever makes it into an integrated release. Particularly with the more recent releases, many of the new capabilities, the new projects, they were in development for 2 years before they actually became part of a release. And this can be a challenge for all of us, trying to follow along, keep score at home. What's in OpenStack, what's not. And we're also very lucky to have an amazing number of different components, different OpenStack-related open source projects. A lot of them are here today. We're helping to bring those communities together. They're not part of OpenStack, but they may be part of an OpenStack-powered cloud. And so I thought it would be good to kind of just review, what's in OpenStack, what are the different projects, and we have this kind of fun animation to see, how the different projects evolve over time. And so one of the things that we've done, and as I said, the more recent releases, is with the leadership of the technical committee, our project technical leads who are all elected by all of you out in the community, all the active contributors. We've really started to raise the bar higher and higher for what it means to be in an integrated release. And if you think about, what it took to be in the Austin release, pretty much just needed to be able to spell Austin. Bear, we didn't even actually require that you know how to pronounce bear. So if you said Bexar or Bear, we counted both because, it was early days, Cactus and beyond. But if you think about what we're actually doing today, we've added Horizon, the dashboard, Keystone, which is the identity service, Heat and Ceilometer, which are orchestration and metering systems. These are all capabilities that are instrumental to operating an infrastructure as a service. And a lot of people have wondered, about the scope of OpenStack. But if you think about it, it's been 4 years and 9 releases. We now have these 10 key components that are part of the integrated release. And they're all really things that fit together. An integrated release means things that we're trying to test together, that operators have told us, don't just give me a bucket of parts. Test these things together. Today, with the summit format, a lot of the discussions, we actually had a full day on cross-project testing, working together to make sure that in the real world, these projects work well together. And if you even look at Icehouse versus Havana 6 months ago, we've actually now have over 50 external testing systems to test things like drivers. And we had 2 in Havana. So I do believe that we've grown very rapidly as a community, but I think that we're putting some good measures in place to make sure that we're not expanding the scope of OpenStack too fast. But there's always room for debate, and that's what we love about the summits. So when we think about this massive growth, this shows you the monthly average contributors. We actually have over 2,000 contributors in total. But it's no secret, this is the biggest summit we've ever had. We have more users than ever. We have, Wells Fargo, Disney. We're going to hear from AT&T in a little bit, and Sony and others. What I'm always asking myself is why? Why is there more interest in OpenStack than ever? This summit, we have 4,700 people here. It's 50% bigger than the last one 6 months ago. Why is that? And, I believe it has a lot to do with this massive transformation going on in the entire economy. There's a revolution going on inside of global corporations. And, every company has to move faster. Every company is now competing with a startup. Even the startups have to worry about the new startups coming in behind them. I mean, you think about Uber. I don't know how many of you are familiar with Uber, but they're really disrupting the whole taxi transportation industry. And then you have Lyft, which has come along to compete with them and even others. So, those have been driven by the power to innovate at speed with agile infrastructure. So I believe that the cloud computing and open source, those are the two biggest drivers of this new competitive landscape. And that's because people want speed. Speed is the name of the game. I'm not sure how many of you get this, but he was involved with speed. So how many of you here wish that your company could move faster? Any show of hands? I know a lot of you have your VPs nearby, so you might not want to raise your hands. How about this? How many of you want your company to move faster than your competitors? Yeah? Seems like a popular idea. I think that we all want to move faster than we did last year, the year before that. And the reality is, if your organization is not aligned around moving faster, too bad. If your people in your organization don't have the right skills, you're going to have to hire. I mean, how many people here are hiring? Pretty much everybody. So you're going to have to get training. If your CIO said to you, "Don't use the cloud," too bad. You're going to use it anyway, right? Because that's the competitive landscape that every single company on the planet is in. I mean, that is the only path to money these days. Wells Fargo, Chris from Disney yesterday said that in the old paradigm, you had to choose between cost and quality and speed, and really it's all about speed now. Speed can actually get you to those other things. You have to prioritize speed. And I think that we're living in a time when there's more creative destruction going on in every industry than ever before. Software is eating the world. Startups are springing up. There's a new incubator every day. And this faster pace is shown here in a couple of data points that I wanted to run through. So back in the 50s, if you were in the S&P 500, you were going to be there for a generation. If you worked there, your whole career you'd be there. Your company would be at the top. If you were at the top, you stayed at the top because you were at the top. Momentum, being the big guy on the block, that was enough. If you look just to the 80s, that shrank to only 25 years. So now it's no longer a generation that you stay on top. And if you actually fast forward to today, the companies in the S&P 500 are only in it for 18 years. So this speaks to this incredible age of transformation. Everything's happening faster. Software's driving those revolutions. Being big is no longer this great asset. It's all about who can move faster. And if you extrapolate that out and look, where we're headed, that means that 75% of the S&P 500 will be replaced by 2027. So those are the facts. We can all debate what are the drivers. I definitely believe that cloud computing, agile infrastructure, the cost dropping for experimentation, those are the things that are driving it. And I think open source is absolutely a key component of that. And so OpenStack being at the intersection of those two things, I think makes us all incredibly lucky. I mean, there's an $80 trillion global economy. Every single aspect is going to be impacted by this. We're at the very beginning, the first inning, the first down, whatever sport. I don't know a lot about soccer, but whatever happens at the beginning. I think that we're all very lucky to be here. 4,500 people, 4,600 people, seems like a giant conference, the biggest one we've ever had. But when we think about how big of a change is happening and how OpenStack can play a vital role in that, I consider myself extremely lucky to be here with all of you, and I think that we should be thinking about the next 9 releases, not just Juno, but thinking about how big this can be of a transformation, how OpenStack can play that role. In today's race where faster wins, everything else is a rounding error. And so OpenStack is helping so many different companies move faster. And if you're working for a big company right now, you better put your super user cape on, figure out how to reorganize, bring in the right talent, move faster, embrace these agile technologies like OpenStack and many other related technologies. And so the three people that we're going to be hearing from this morning, they are all super users. They are all people who are moving much faster and actually thinking beyond just where we are today and thinking about the next 9 releases, thinking about transforming their industries and opportunities that are just bigger than I think we've actually really contemplated with OpenStack. We think about public-private cloud. The first person that's going to come up and talk to us is Toby Ford. Now, a couple things about Toby. One, he was an early believer in OpenStack at AT&T. So he was one of, like many of you, probably got the OpenStack fever, came back, started leading the efforts internally, getting more and more people bought in within his company. They've been running OpenStack for several years now. They've actually running it in many different data centers. And that powers a lot of services that we all use every day. But the opportunity that he's going to talk about in his keynote is actually even bigger. It's actually dwarfs the opportunity for when we think about online and web companies. So I'll just leave you with one data point before we bring up Toby. So when we want to think bigger, thinking about the next 9 releases and beyond, let's take a look at this chart. So the very small dot that you probably can't see if you're in the back, that's something called Facebook. That's their revenue. Google is not much further down. So at the bottom here, most people like to figure out where's the biggest opportunity. Mobile telco is $1.2 trillion industry. And you might not think of OpenStack as having a whole lot to do with mobile telcos. The rest of the telco business is the second one. So telcos make a lot of money. We probably all pay them a lot of money. The TV industry is being remade by moving faster by someone else we'll be hearing from later. But let's think about how big of an opportunity OpenStack can play in the entire global economy, starting with the telco world. And here to talk about it is Toby Ford. So Toby, why don't you come on up and tell us about it?
Good morning, everyone. As Mark was suggesting, I work at AT&T. I suppose you were probably expecting Locutus of Borg or Grand Moff Tarkin or the like, accompanied by the Imperial March. At least some sort of suit with the big old telco kind of mentality, with dubious intent and hopefully I'll disappoint you that way. Anyways, so AT&T, when I first arrived as a part of an acquisition, I was very surprised to find that open source was pretty much forbidden. We're not allowed to use it. It was only used in very small places, and I applaud the efforts of those folks that continued to, carry the flame of open source. Folks like Stephen North on GraphViz and the people that worked on R during this period of time, they kept that flame alive. It was surprising to me, given the history of AT&T and our involvement in Unix and C, kind of the integral pieces of everything that we do, and especially Dennis Ritchie's contribution to sharing, giving the tapes of Unix away to other companies. This was a seminal moment in the beginning of formation of open source. I've always felt as part of AT&T that I could help make this change happen, given that I've been a part of at least a user and abuser of open source for a very long time. Felt like I could bring that notion into AT&T. AT&T now is changed its thinking. Today, it's a much different place when it comes to thinking about open source, and it is now an integral part of our strategy. We are active participants not only in OpenStack, but in other projects, and we're now looking at expanding that into a new area that I'll talk about today. The NFV open platform is an example of this change in strategy that is the result of open source, and specifically the result of our work on OpenStack and our contribution there. It's taught us how to share again. If you look at how we typically work, our vendor relationships are very much about very small number of vendor relationships because it is very onerous to create a relationship with AT&T. Many of those relationships have lasted over 100 years, and those are very large. And it takes quite a bit of effort legal-wise and negotiation-wise to get those in place. When you look at the 400 companies involved in OpenStack, it would take us to 2112 to be able to make agreements with that many companies. OpenStack has provided a proxy for us to get innovation into AT&T that's very unique. So this is a concept that I feel very strongly about. It creates an ecosystem that we can work with and get help from a lot of different groups. Our contributions have not always been that great in this space. It's growing, but indirectly with our partners, we have made a lot of contributions, and you'll see that with what we're talking about today. OpenStack, we've been using it, we've had it in our lab since 2010. I was at the very first summit. It's remarkable, the growth that's happened here. I remember being in a one-room summit with not very many people. And then now, it's honestly very daunting to be talking to thousands of people in one room. The change for us as we started using it in 2010. In production, we actually put production workloads in end of 2011. We today run a number of websites like itcanwait.com, something I highly recommend you go to pledge. AT&T's developer programs around its API exposure, our mHealth program, our Toggle, our dual persona work, the backends for our address book that's on everyone's phone. These things are just the first steps that we've taken into deploying applications onto OpenStack. Today, it's about 120 applications. Now, we've lived through good times and bad times with OpenStack. Obviously, for us, we actually still have pre-Diablo versions, Cactus versions in production, which is somewhat problematic and an issue that I know the community is working on. I'm very excited about in Icehouse, the work done to get to rolling upgrades and the promotion of CI, CD, and these types of things in OpenStack. This is very helpful to us. Now, as we've gone forward, we've expanded our footprint. So it started with three data centers, and now we've deployed it into 7 data centers today. This end of the year, we should add 3 more. The use cases that we're using have expanded from typical back-end applications and some of our external services, our API gateways. They've expanded now to include new things, especially big data and then a whole new area of function that I'm very excited about. It keeps me coming to work really pumped about the opportunity. Over the next period of time, over the next 2 years, we actually plan to expand the footprint from 7 to 10 sites and expand that by 10 to 20 sites. You might ask, why so many locations? The answer is NFV, or Network Function Virtualization. So Network Function Virtualization, I hate to be a purveyor of yet another acronym. AT&T is an acronym, and it's really excited about its acronyms. And feel free to throw something at me if I reel off 12 in one sentence. It's very possible when we talk about the mobility systems that we work on. But NFV is making a significant change in our industry. It's causing galaxies to collide. The traditional IT space and the traditional telco space of function and competitors and vendors, they're colliding. They're colliding on top of a concept that is essentially the ongoing onslaught of Moore's Law, of automation, of agile methods, of consolidation, commoditization, these web scale. These concepts are now catching the systems that we run inside of our network, the things that we use to run our mobility systems, and the things that we use to run our TV platforms, they're all getting caught up in the same desire to be more agile, to move faster, to have higher utilization, to lower the cost, to move faster, to bring function to market quicker. Those things are getting wrapped up in it. Even AT&T, is having competition from unique new players, and we have to move faster. We have to change. OpenStack, open source, is helping us to do that because I believe that OpenStack can expand to include workloads like NFV. So again, this concept of NFV is really changing the landscape. Today in our networks, we run a number of things that are built on very specific hardware. Things that you may be familiar with, routers and switches, firewalls, load balancing, all things that have been traditionally things that have been already running on OpenStack today, already part of the SDN phenomena. And then beyond that, we're talking about elements of the mobility system, things like session border controllers or huge NAT devices. They really are custom-built, very expensive pieces of hardware. But when you look at them, they're actually very similar to the other things that we run. They look very similar to load balancers and firewalls and application servers. Thankfully, they come to us with the natural pre-dereliction toward scale-out, toward cattle-based architectures. So in a way, they're ready. They're ready to make this transformation. And if you look at this space, you see a lot of open source players that are coming to actually solve this problem, starting with the things like Asterix and such. Starting at that point, those are expanding to include many of these network functions, both on the mobility side and on the TV side, as we look at and then are inspired by what Netflix has been able to do on a public cloud in a very scale-out model. We are able to be inspired to change the way that we deliver TV content to our Uverse customers. So this is helping us in a number of ways. Obviously, it is by changing to a new model, taking everything that was running in specialized hardware and moving it into a virtualized world, either VMs or containers or even virtual appliances, bringing them into a multi-tenant space allows us to get higher utilization, more agility, and allows us to be more competitive, and allows us to distribute function closer to the user. The real advantage that AT&T has, if you think about it, we have an enormous number of physical places around North America where you could put servers. And by doing so, and having a lot of underutilized bandwidth between all these locations, if you think about it, we can take like content distribution to the next level, make it far more dynamic, and have it exist closer to the user. This is essential to things like moving a mobility system into a virtual platform. Making OpenStack handle more distributed methods is a key part of making this transition happen. So to me, OpenStack is well positioned to handle this new workload. The things about OpenStack that I like, beyond what I was describing as a proxy for working with a much richer ecosystem, a pluggability model. This pluggability model in like Cinder and in Neutron helps us to get leverage over vendors and to work with a broader set of vendors. And within that model, there is enormous peer pressure between vendors to have high quality code, testable code, stuff that actually works and is scalable and performant. Beyond that, OpenStack and its innovation cycle, it's helping us to promote the use of agile methods within AT&T. It's an example of how continuous integration, continuous deployment, and these types of things, especially our work around Tempest and around RefStack and DefCore and these things, they're helping us to promote Agile within AT&T, a place that pretty much invented the waterfall method. Now, this innovation is causing us to really question, not just within this space, but in other spaces as well. SDN is a particular example where we're now realizing that the routers and switches that we use, they need to be virtualized as well. Unfortunately, the SDN term is very overloaded, and when I first heard NFV, I thought, do we really need to have another term? Since SDN is already so overloaded with hardware, software disaggregation, control plane, data plane separation, and hypervisor vSwitch virtualization, and overlay protocols, and orchestration and automation. Why do we need to have, why not just add in the layer 4+ functions and the things that telcos think of as network, really applications? Why not just call that all SDN? Unfortunately, my coworkers are the ones that came up with NFV concept. So eventually, I have to kind of comply with this idea. And in some sense, it makes sense because NFV means really a different kind of application footprint, a different kind of function. So hopefully, and when I look at all of the benefits of OpenStack and where it's been and where it's gone and the next 9 releases, as Mark was talking about, I'm very excited about it, the opportunity. It is awesome. Now the thing is, and this reminds me of when I was a kid, I had this bike. It was called the Raleigh Chopper Mark II. It had a small wheel in the front, a large wheel in the back, very large tires. It had a banana seat with all leather with a nice back. It had a sissy bar, and it had shock absorbers. It had like a muscle car shifter with 3 speeds. It had 8 hangers. It was awesome. It was red. Unfortunately, it suffered from 2 fatal flaws. One, that the shifter was not really in a very strategic location. And when you were going, more onerous was when you were going downhill at high speed and you applied the brake pressure equally, you had a tendency to reverse wheelie and fly out the front of the bike. In this process, I lost a tooth, a cleft chin, part of my face, and mysteriously, after the second time, the bike itself disappeared. Don't let OpenStack have this kind of fatal flaw. People say, the OpenStack is fatal flaw is that it doesn't have a benevolent dictator, or people who say that don't understand the model. The PTLs, the projects, they are essentially separate open source projects that have a unique federation, a unique binding cohesion that is the overarching concept of OpenStack that makes it work. That isn't its fatal flaw. Its fatal flaw is not scaling from the level we're at now to the next level. I am confident in the model, I'm confident in the people, and I'm confident in the adoption that's happened. For me, the fatal flaw is a lack of, expanding the paradigm, thinking about OpenStack more broadly. Not every workload is a perfect scale-out cattle application. Every once in a while, one of those cows look like Bessie, and you kind of fall in love with it. And unfortunately, that can give you a black eye. The pets have to be handled and have to be managed. The enterprise workloads, I feel, have to be brought into scope more clearly. And then on the other side, when we talk about catering to telco workloads, reliability, performance, scalability, distribution to many locations has to be a part of the story. It has to be included into what we're thinking about. And in the end, I think OpenStack can handle that, and it can expand to this scope. So hopefully, if you'd like to hear more detail, more specific technical detail about what the change is and specifics about NFV and SDN, and then some of the work that we're doing blueprint-wise and changes we're trying to get promoted into OpenStack to make it more usable for this new NFV workload, please come and hear Mats Carlson at Ericsson and I talk about this at 2:50. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Toby. That is very exciting. I told him, he just needs to help us get to the next $2 trillion market, so no pressure. So next up, we've got Joel Johnston from Sony. Let's hear what they're doing. So, Joel, Sony, what's Sony all about? What do you guys make over there?
Well, we make these little video games.
Oh, video games.
I think we have a video maybe we can just show you.
Sure, why not?
All right.
PlayStation.
Wow. All right. Well, I guess who wants to get out of here and go play some MLB 14? Maybe that wasn't in the schedule. Sorry. So what the heck does all these cool games, all the stuff you guys do at Sony, I mean, what does OpenStack have to do with that? What are you guys doing with OpenStack over there?
Well, with OpenStack specifically, we are hosting the software that connects players online for our first-party studios. And this software does anything from player matchmaking to stats to leaderboards and social media integration.
Wow, okay, so it's an integral part of the gameplay. And what I guess, are the benefits to Sony for adopting OpenStack, trying to make that part of your platform that powers PlayStation 4?
There are a number. Right off the top, virtualization in general, just the ability to use what we already have. We were able to take our existing bare metal footprint and run OpenStack there, which just optimized our data center. Mm-hmm. From the customer service perspective, I think the self-service aspect of it is probably very impactful for the developers. We have developers around the world, so we're on a 24/7 schedule, but most of our support teams are here in the US. So a lot of the times in the past, we've had tickets that come in to provision servers, and that could take a couple hours, a couple days, just depending on the workload. Mm-hmm. Now these developers have this at their fingertips 24/7.
So the developers internally that are making all these cool games, they're really your internal customers then?
That's correct. That's correct.
So you're helping them move faster and basically make happier developers, makes better games?
Absolutely. I think another thing is from a performance perspective, in the public cloud, some of our studios were having issues with just reliable performance. And bringing OpenStack in-house, we were able to do something to the nature of a 1-to-1 overcommit ratio. Mm-hmm. So they can really know what's under the hood, and when they have a problem, our engineering staff and our DBAs can get in and look at what the actual issue is and make sure that real-time element of the gameplay is always there for them.
That's cool. So in terms of the gaming industry, we were talking earlier about how every industry is being remade through software right now. I mean, I think some people were saying a year or two ago that the console is dead, and PlayStation, you guys obviously didn't take that line down, and you've come out with this home run, no pun intended. PlayStation 4 sales are through the roof, it seems. So, how has the console changed in this sort of cloud world or software world from maybe how we used to think of consoles?
I think the largest change is the fact that the software in the games themselves, obviously the quality is rising quickly, but you also have this level of integration with social media and the rest of the internet. I mean, you can play a game and click a button and immediately share video of what you just did in that game with the whole world. So I think that's a pretty impressive change.
So you're actually relying on your OpenStack-powered clouds to power these experiences, so people can actually share their moment in the game.
Absolutely.
So we're actually connecting people, from one basement to another all across America.
Exactly.
It's impressive. Yeah, I mean, we got to get them social somehow.
That's right.
If OpenStack can be the way, I'm okay with that. So looking forward, I was talking earlier about, looking at the next 9 releases. Just we're always trying to hear from users about what your wish list is. I'm sure for OpenStack to continue to be strategic to Sony, you want to see some things. You want to see you're here, you're engaged in the community, going to sessions. I mean, what are some of the things that you're advocating while you're here in town?
I think there's really one main thing with a couple of spires off of the hub. Primarily, it's in-place upgrades. Getting from version to version in OpenStack, I think that's a level of maturity that we're still waiting to see. I know you can do it with Nova, but when I say in-place upgrades, I'm talking about being able to go from Nova Network to Neutron, and then from Neutron to whatever's next, and the storage space is the same kind of thing. It's that maturity that allows us to do our upgrades in place and not disrupt our studio's workloads.
So that way you can really take advantage of those next however many releases. And I know a lot of people are here working hard on Neutron and working on the bridge to get you there, and so it's certainly a theme that we've heard quite a bit. So appreciate you being a super user. To us, it's all about contributing in different ways, and coming out here is a great way to do it. So thank you very much.
Glad to be here.
All right.
Thank you very much.
All right. So next up, we've got Guillaume Abouchan from DigitalFilm Tree. So come on up, Guillaume. We're going to have a seat.
Mark, good to be. I can call you Mark, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Sweet.
It's fine. Whatever you're into, Guillaume. Look, you look like somebody, I don't know, I know you're from Hollywood, you're from TV world, like you just...
Piston party last night.
Oh, wow.
Woo!
I don't know, you look familiar. I feel like we should be doing this, between 2 ferns. I don't know.
I think we should.
It just seems like that would be more appropriate.
A little something for you. Biggest conference yet? You gotta tip them. 20s now. No more singles.
Really? Times have changed.
Times have changed. Economy's getting tougher.
Huh. So, what the heck are we doing here? You're doing some OpenStack thing or what?
Yeah, doing some OpenStack. Have you ever practiced the ancient art of origami?
I can't say that I have, no.
Japanese paper folding. So OpenStack is like origami. And you can sort of take like a flat sheet of paper and you can fold it into a beautiful crane. And that's like software-defined paper.
I see.
It's shape it, mold it, lotus.
It's a big insight.
Yeah.
Thanks.
As I just came up with that on the bus ride over here from the piston party.
Yeah. Okay. So what else can you tell us about OpenStack?
Oh, oddly enough,
not just
oddly enough, little known fact, proprietary clouds killed 25,000 people last year.
Wow. I mean, you guys
crushed under the loads of their own servers.
I love data. I mean, if I'd known, we could have had a graph, but okay. Sure.
Yeah, open clouds, no one killed. Maybe one.
Okay.
Unconfirmed.
Unconfirmed reports. Okay. So anything else that we should be aware of? What goes on in those server rooms of yours?
I think
I'm not sure if I actually want to know now that I ask it.
Yeah, it's a frightening place to be, alone at night. But the biggest thing we're introducing this year, really why I'm here and why I feel like the biggest contribution we can make to the community is something we like to call SWAS. So that's Sweater as a Service. And, IT...
SWAS or SWAS?
Like SWAS.
Okay.
It's sort of South American in its pronunciation. But SWAS, IT professionals are exposed to hypothermia every day in data centers. And we want to make sure that there are sweaters hanging there for them to just grab at a moment's notice. They feel a little bit chilled. They're just sitting there and they're like, I'm so cold, I can't write code anymore. They can grab a sweater.
Well, hopefully OpenStack has produced enough of this kind of clothing, apparel, if you will, to keep everybody safe. All right, well, in all seriousness, why don't we actually bid adieu to Zach and hear from Guillaume again. So you actually are, in addition to cracking me up backstage, you're also with this company, DigitalFilm Tree. Yes. We heard a bit about what you guys do in Hong Kong, but you're part of how television gets made. What is that exactly? What does DigitalFilm Tree actually do?
We're a full-service television and film post-production facility in Los Angeles, and we take content from camera acquisition throughout that entire finishing process out all the way to distribution. So work on shows like Modern Family, NCIS Los Angeles. We did Her last year, and we're really trying to sort of change the industry in a positive way that I feel will save the industry in many ways.
So I know that you're a smaller company. A lot of people think OpenStack's only for big companies. We were talking about this yesterday, and you were very excited about the fact that a smaller company can be a part of a big mission. How do you feel about that? Is that true?
Yeah, I mean, we stood up our first OpenStack deployment. We only have 4 people that concentrate on OpenStack, and we stood it up in 6 months. And OpenStack is now the cornerstone to almost every television show we do, including not only an OpenStack instance that we have at DFT, but also on-site instances of OpenStack that we run right in an editorial environment on 2 of our shows.
So you've talked in some of the videos we've seen. People may recognize you from your TV show as well as the videos here. But what is it about your career that you felt was possible now? You were saying that maybe the industry was dying. There was a lot of people predicting its demise. So how has that changed your career trajectory?
I read a highly depressing Yahoo article about 4 years ago, and it said, "The industries that will go away in 10 years." And I went down that list, and it was like, print. Okay, yeah, I could see that going away in 10 years. What are you going to do? And then I got to the bottom of the list, and it said, post-production for TV and film. And I was like, aw. Like, I gotta find something else to do with my life.
Yeah.
But there goes that 12 years of a career. Sweet. We really felt that by moving in a more software-oriented direction, what we like to call is software-defined post-production, that we can offer a much higher level of service to the creative professional and really keep post-production services relevant.
That's great. So the tools that your industry uses, I think traditionally they're very expensive. There's a very small community. Obviously you're now using OpenStack as a big part of your workflow. That's a tool used by a much bigger community. I mean, how is that different in terms of how that makes up your strategy?
It makes a tremendous impact in terms of how efficient we can be as a company. You know, using open source software and being able to reach out to all of these people in the audience to say, hey, have you done this before? Or go to a blog post where somebody's done that before is tremendously beneficial. Prior to this, you know, we were using software that could cost $250,000, and there may only be 30 or 40 companies that are using that piece of software. You know, your blog, your wiki page was having the cell phone number of the guy who wrote the software to begin with, because the company who wrote the software is only 2 people. So, you know,
by the way, I have Vish's cell phone number if that's what you're looking for.
Absolutely, I will take that any day. But yeah, I mean, we really found it tremendously helpful to enter this community and have the support of thousands and thousands of people behind us.
So what do you want to see happening in the community moving forward? You're a big part of it now. You know, how do you want to see the community evolve?
You know, we've always been tremendous advocates of communication and education in whatever we do. And, you know, I really think the next evolution of OpenStack is really to educate a broader scope of people so that there's a broader spectrum of professionals for us to hire. You know, one of the problems we have, particularly in Los Angeles, is we just can't reach out and hire an IT professional who's fluent in OpenStack. It's still sort of highly specialized in that way.
So continue to grow the education efforts are important.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you very much, Guillaume. Appreciate you playing along.
Thank you.
Everyone in the audience.
Go OpenStack.
Thank you very much. All right. So before we bring out our next keynote speaker, I wanted to play another quick video for you. You've seen we've produced quite a few this summit. And this one really has the theme of how users can get involved and contribute, not just contributing code, but also getting involved in the summits, getting involved in operators meetups, really helping to influence the roadmap. There are so many ways to get involved. So we've produced a short video to tell you a little bit more about that.
A super user will identify places where OpenStack can be improved, will work with the community in order to define how to improve it, and will then help to refine the requirements and potentially test once those requirements are addressed.
And being able to contribute back to the community and then influence the community through contribution.
I feel like it's very important for AT&T to influence the future of OpenStack, as we are now pivoting from and really expanding the scope of OpenStack from simple back-end applications and websites to something even broader.
The most important part is, in order to be heard, you need to speak up. You can't influence how things are going. You can't influence what features are being developed and what direction it takes without being involved.
So there's an open source cloud provider that we have access to and that we have a relationship with, so we can say what features we need and what features aren't working for us and what features we need improved. And given that it's an open source product, they can then work with the OpenStack community or within themselves to improve it.
We can take this and we can adapt and mold it to the specific needs of our business without just sort of having technology shoved down our throat.
If we were talking to a enterprise vendor of this type of software, they would be calling it competing requirements, right? That hey, you got all these competing requirements, and I've only got so many engineering resources to build this. And the OpenStack project, everybody has multiple requirements. Everybody is pushing forward the things that are important to them, but that's all happening in parallel.
When it comes to determining new features in OpenStack, I think it's very important for users of all sizes to get involved.
It's really powerful to say, working on a technology makes you excited. So really being a super user meant we can touch it, we can feel it, and we can help it progress.